for venue change. When you hear from Brian Edelman, which I don't know if you have to now because I've said most of the things,
I'm happy to hear what he has to say if you want him to be said.
You would know, and you probably know from his affidavit, sometimes he recommends against venue change.
Sure.
Because it's not there. He's done with Latah County. The results aren't compiled yet. I anticipate he'll recommend we change venue. Where we are now is we'd like to finish the other 2 counties. You don't have to do 2.
You did say that he said that Latah County is biased.
I anticipate he's going to recommend the change venue for that reason.
I'm interested from him how he defines bias. And we all have some biases.
I will not put words in his mouth for that one.
I'm not expecting you to do that.
I will either have him testify today if you want to hear it today, or we'll do it at the venue change hearing when we get there.
Welcome back to my Mental Health and Crime channel. My name is Huda London. This is for entertainment purpose only. Ann Taylor has asked for a change of revenue. I personally believe that shouldn't be an issue. The survey that was put out was to find out of what people think. Brian Christopher Kohlberger is not going to get a bias. Sorry, he's going to just get a biased jury. He's not going to get a fair trial. Because I personally believe they already pinged this on him. There is a possibility that he did it with other suspects. But I personally don't believe that he did this by himself. My question is, what happens when a prosecutor or the prosecution team is acting very biased to Brian Christopher Kohlberger? This is a capital murder case. He deserves a fair trial. I wonder if the people who received the surveys have direct contact with MPD, Chief Fry, and William Thompson, the prosecutor. And why didn't the judge make a hearing for Ann Taylor and her team to explain themselves about the surveys? It just makes me ask, is there some kind of cover-up that's going on? The reason I say that is because I personally believe there are others involved. Others, how could Saeed Ali be watching the crime pictures? How could Joe Vito be watching it? How could the people in the grub truck be watching it? How come they were calling Xana's name? I wanted to show you all a case that I've been following in. I've been following on this case since 2020, May, when this happened. Some of y'all may have heard of this case. Suzanne Morphew was missing on Mother's Day, I believe on the 9th of May 2020, around COVID time. Her husband, Barry Morphew, was accused of Susanna's disappearance. The crime scene or the house was handled very unprofessionally by the sheriff and his team. That's the reason I believe Barry Morphew walked out. He was let go. In Barry Morphew's case, they did not have sufficient evidence. The crime scene was tampered with. Suzanne's body was never found. May she rest in peace. because her human remains were found 8 months ago. But the prosecutor was against Barry Morphew. The prosecutor in Barry Morphew's case made a lot of mistakes. She wasn't turning over the evidence to the defense attorney. Barry had an excellent defense lawyer. I believe her name was Iris Eaton. I hope I haven't misspelled her name. And she wanted the change of revenue for Barry Morphew because he comes from a small town in Denver, Colorado. And he believed, he and his defense team really believed that he would get an unfair trial, which was true. The whole town knew him. They already made up their mind that he was guilty. But she fought and made sure that the trial got a new judge. Barry walked away free in Suzanne's disappearance, and honestly, I personally believe, this is my personal belief, that Barry was guilty. There was a lot of things in this case that pointed to Barry Morphew, without a doubt. But the reason I'm using this case as an example to Brian Christopher Koberger's case is because I see many similarities. So let's listen to Barry Morphew as prosecutor.
It will mark 3 years since Suzanne Morphew went missing.
The Chaffee County woman reportedly went for a bike ride Mother's Day 2020 and never came home. Well, 1 year after she disappeared, her husband Barry was arrested and charged in her death. Her body's never been found.
9 days before the trial was set to start, prosecutors dropped the charges, but can still refile them. Today, Morphew's attorney made serious claims against the district attorney and demanded accountability.
Denver 7 investigative reporter Jennifer Kovaleski in the studio tonight.
And Jen, there are still a whole lot of questions in this case.
There are a lot of questions, and nearly 3 years later, and we still don't know what happened to Suzanne Morphew. Prosecutors accused her husband Barry of killing her, only to later drop the charges. The reason? They said police knew where Suzanne's body was and needed the snow to melt to find her. But to this day, her body has never been found. The latest twist comes from her husband's attorney. She's now asking the state to launch an investigation into the elected district attorney who filed the charges. Almost exactly 1 year since Barry Morphew walked out of this Fremont County courtroom with all the charges against him dropped in the death of his wife Suzanne. Morphew's defense attorney Iris Eaton is calling out the prosecutors who had him arrested.
Their case was baseless to begin with.
She's accusing elected district attorney Linda Stanley.
For me, today is a good day.
Of concealing evidence and other serious misconduct.
Their affidavit they filed was like a tabloid, filled with misrepresentations.
Eaton wants the state's Office of Attorney Regulation Counsel to investigate DA Stanley and 6 other prosecutors involved in Morphew's case.
I 100% believe, as my team does, that Barry Morphew is innocent.
In this recently filed 80-plus page complaint, she claims there is absolute proof prosecutors committed ethical violations justifying severe discipline and disbarment.
She has a license to practice law more powerful than most other individuals in this entire country. I don't believe she should have a right to prosecute other human beings.
And it's not just Eaton raising concerns. Last week, a Fremont County judge threw out murder charges in another case to punish DA Stanley for failing to hand over evidence, stating, the district attorney's pattern of neglect reveals an urgent and serious need for the district attorney to modify its discovery practices.
These public officials need to follow the law, just like all the rest of us do.
The judge lists more than 20 cases in the last 2 years where the DA's office failed to turn over evidence as required by law. What is your message to Linda Stanley and the prosecutors in her office?
My message to Linda Stanley is, do your job, follow the law, follow the rules. Stop victimizing people in your community.
Morphew's attorney also wants prosecutors across the state to be held accountable. She says right now they face no real punishment for misconduct. She's calling on lawmakers to make it possible to sue prosecutors and hold them personally liable. Anna Chan, we did reach out to the district attorney's office for comment about what the attorney is alleging here, and she has not gotten back to us.
His wife in Chaffee County will be in court, and his defense team fights to move his trial to a different county.
And Barry Morphew's wife, Suzanne, disappeared a year and a half ago. She's still missing today, even as investigators continue to search for her.
9 News reporter Mark Salinger is live in Salida this morning to break down what's going to happen in court today, we believe. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, guys. Barry Morphew has been making scheduled appearances here in court in Chaffee County pretty regularly over the last couple of weeks as his case moves forward towards trial. Now, we expect a judge today to decide whether or not the trial will take place here in Chaffee County or if it'll move to a different location in a different county as his defense team has asked. Now, Morphew's defense team asked the judge to move the trial to another county, arguing that it'd be hard for Barry to have a fair trial in a town where nearly everybody knows about the case. The defense argues that it would be hard for Morphew to get an impartial jury when so many people in town have been following the case and know information about it. Now, last week at his last hearing, Morphew's defense team also filed a motion to modify his bond agreement so that he could travel to see his daughters in Gunnison. The judge already granted that. Now, Suzanne...
People that the investigators are looking at?
I think it's fair to say that there have been people of interest to the investigators, and everyone that they've identified so far, they've been able to exonerate. Perhaps exonerate isn't the best word, but they've been able to eliminate them as being an actual suspect. And we do not have a name of a person or persons who are actual suspects. That's what they're focusing on still.
So there's not someone behind the scenes that you secretly know about that you're just waiting on one more piece of evidence or one more piece of DNA and then boom, this will be settled?
I can tell you that I'm not aware of any single person with a name that we're focusing on, that the investigators are focusing on.
Okay.
So it's fair to say that in the beginning, there wasn't any particular person, suspect or suspects on MPD and the prosecutor's mind. When did they discover it was Brian Christopher Koberger who did it? Wouldn't there have been traces of Brian from the beginning? Or could it be possible that everyone started calling the FBI's phone the real suspects and pinned it on Brian Christopher Koberger? That is possible. Let's not forget, Idaho Moscow is a small community. The college students all know each other. They could have all planned this together and then framed Brian Christopher Koberger. That is a possibility. Or it could be possible that Brian Christopher Koberger himself is involved, but he's not the only person who did this. But my question today is, what happens when prosecutors do not hand over evidence so that the defense attorney could fight this case properly for her client? We need to find out if Brian Christopher Koberger actually did this crime by himself or if he's being framed. Why is it bothering the prosecutor, William Thompson, of the survey? Why is the survey really bothering him? And who are the people who received the survey that contacted him? This is clearly bias, because every profession, prosecutor or defense attorney that has been asked this question on social media and on mainstream news are saying it's normal with a survey. What are these people hiding? I don't mean hiding, but what are they covering up? Why is everything still on gag order? Now let's see what Brian Christopher Koberger's case would look like if he had a defense attorney who filed complaints on the prosecutor.
How do they get away with this? That's what my clients ask me over and over again. My clients, ex-clients, who are innocent and victims of prosecutorial misconduct. One of them is here, Micah Kimball. Many others are listening in on the Zoom, which include Cole Stewart, John St. Augustine, and then, of course, there's Barry Morphew. Also here is Ray Moore, who suffered prosecutorial misconduct down in El Paso County, and Clarence Moses L., and everyone should know Tim Masters. All of these are Colorado cases. And all of these people ask that question to me or their criminal defense lawyers. How can this happen? Over and over again. Happen. Over and over again. And you know what my answer to my clients and what their lawyers tell them? We don't know. We don't know why it keeps happening, because nobody is doing anything about it. There's absolutely no deterrent to prosecutors committing misconduct. Clients ask me over and over again. My clients, ex-clients, who are innocent and victims of prosecutorial misconduct. One of them is here, Micah Kimball, where Linda Stanley and her team at that time was comprised of Linda Stanley, Mark Hurlbert, Robert Weiner, and Grant Groskebauer, who stood in front of a court and told the judge that they weren't dismissing the case because the court had come down so harshly on them for their repetitive and pervasive and egregious prosecutorial misconduct, but because they believed after 2 hot summers they would find Suzanne Morphew's body and all of a sudden needed her body in order to prosecute Barry Morphew, who they held in a jail cell for 5 months and then on a $500,000 cash bond subsequent to that. Well, 6 months later, in October 2022, we had a hearing to try and get Barry's thousands and thousands of dollars of property that was held by the Sheriff's Department as a result of all the searches that were conducted at Barry Morphew's house, home, and vehicles. And DA Hurlbert told the court, well, Judge, I mean, we didn't do that in bad faith, when Missy Tan is claiming that we moved to dismiss the case in bad faith. We really did believe that her body was buried under 6 feet of snow that we just couldn't get to in April before the trial was set. And he said, we were wrong about that. Well, they're wrong about a lot of things. They were wrong about who did it, when it happened, how it happened, and what happened, because all of those alleged facts in their affidavit were false. So now it's nearly a year later, and with this immense amount of misconduct that happened in the Morphew case and all the cases preceding it, I founded an organization called Protect Ethical Prosecutors. This organization is to deter prosecutors from committing this type of misconduct ever again in this country. And the way to do that is to hold them accountable, because they're not. Judges do a fair job at trying to, but as you see in the Morphew case, after the judge pounded Linda Stanley and her team for violating the rules and laws of this state, they were found by other judges 14 times to have violated the rules and the Constitution of this state and this country. So much so that 2 weeks ago, another judge dismissed a first-degree murder case for the same type of violations. They didn't learn. Linda Stanley's office didn't learn. And let me be clear, even though Linda Stanley is an elected public official who should be equal under the law, just like all the rest of us, a license to practice law more powerful than most other individuals in this entire country, she should have to answer for that. So yes, I don't believe she should have a right to prosecute other human beings.
And the problem solvers just received a statement from Stanley saying, in part, the potential filing of a complaint against an attorney is not equivalent to the attorney engaging in any misconduct. It goes on to say all individuals, whether facing a potential complaint against their professional license or facing criminal charges, are entitled to due process. Because we have no information on the complaint alleged by Ms. Eiton, we cannot comment at this time.